Nobody starts at the finish line. You have to start somewhere. In order for you to get to where you're going, to meet that destination, you can't think that you're going to get there instantly. Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Mindful Minute podcast, where we touch on different things of different topics on different areas of life, on how we could go from a nothing place to a something place. And today we are talking about self-validation. Yes, self-validation, why it is necessary, what it actually means, what happens when we lack it, right? And what happens when we have it or when we do it, and some action steps to help us gravitate into doing this more regularly, because sometimes we can't do something that we don't know how to do because we're like, well, I thought it was this, but it is this. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, first, it is very important for me to put this disclaimer out there. Self-validation does not mean that you can't get validation from others. Self-validation does not mean you don't want validation from others. Self-validation does not mean validation from others is not beneficial. I am not saying that. What I am saying is, in order for us to be fully benefiting from others' validation, we have to validate ourselves. We have to give certain things to ourselves first, and then anybody else that pours into our cup will help us to overflow or fill us up, right? And the reason that is very important for us to understand that is because if you do not validate yourself first, what will happen is you'll be looking so much for validation from others that when you don't get it, you'll feel like, I'm never enough. What I'm doing is not enough. Well, because it didn't work out, it must have been something that I did. Something that I didn't do. So it's very important that we see it from the standpoint of, no, validation from others is okay, but validating myself is very essential. It is very important for me to be fully aware of my limitations, my flaws, my emotions. That is very important. Now watch this. This is what the dictionary says self-validation is. It says the feeling of having recognized, confirmed, or established one's own worthiness or legitimacy. So if we don't validate ourselves, then we may not feel as though we're worthy of certain treatment. We don't feel as though that we're worthy of certain things. We don't feel as though that we're worthy of certain actions or behaviors. And that can come from a list of things, right? You may have a hard time forgiving yourself because you have not validated yourself. Hence, lack of worthiness. Oh, I don't deserve this. You shouldn't do this for me. You haven't validated yourself. And so because you have not validated yourself, you're going to find it very difficult for you to even be reciprocal of somebody talking to you a favorable way, somebody displaying actions to you that you may really truly want, but it'll be hard for you to accept that because you don't think that you're worthy of the treatment. Now, the flip side of that area right there is it's going to be very difficult for you to forgive yourself in order for you to get over certain hurdles, certain roadblocks. Because if you don't forgive yourself and you don't think that you're worthy, then you'll constantly be stuck in the place of reliving whatever it is that you do not feel as though you're worthy of. So what do I mean? What do I mean by that is, if it's something that you did and you're like, man, I don't think I deserve this because I did this. Well, I understand that. That's a level of, you feeling a little guilt. And you like, well, I'm not worthy of this because I did this. But the question truly is, well, how long do you have this measure of guilt on you if you stopped the behavior, if you stopped the actions, if you stopped the treatment? How long should you put yourself in that mindset of not actually trying to receive or do better? See, it is very important for us to understand that we have to forgive ourselves. And the key to forgiving ourselves is self-validation. When we have validated ourselves and we have a sense of worthiness, we have a sense of legitimacy, then we'll say, okay, we'll gravitate away from shame and guilt. Guilt is I did a bad thing. Shame is I'm a bad person. And so when we validate ourselves, we'll now move into the realm of, even though this happened, I can now distance myself away from that, and I can be receiving of favorable energy. Because if you don't validate yourself, you will not be able to receive favorable energy. Only thing you'll be able to receive is unfavorable energy, because what you're putting out is unfavorable energy. You are exuding, I'm not favorable. So what are you in turn going to receive? Unfavorable. So that's very important for us to understand that. Now, here's another thing for us to remember. When we're looking for self-validation, we need to take some steps in order to achieve this. And some of the steps can start with as simple as, I love myself. Well, see, self-validation can be in the form of affirmations. They can be in the form of us telling ourselves, I am this. Oh, I forgive me. Well, it's an affirmation, but it's also self-validating. So if it's hard for you to overcome something that you have done in the past and you're trying to move forward, you have to put yourself in a position of saying, I'm worthy. So once you do that, and again, affirmations. So look at it from this standpoint. If you say, I forgive me, well, now, even if others have not forgiven you, you'll be able to move forward because you have forgiven you. You have did the part that's very key, and that is forgiving yourself, because if you don't forgive yourself, well, others may forgive you, but you'll still be stuck at this roadblock and not moving forward and progressing because you have not forgiven yourself. You'll start constantly thinking, oh, it's my fault and I did such bad thing. And I'm not saying that what you did or didn't do is not, negative or unfavorable or whatever, because I don't know. But what I do know is, at somewhere, if you're trying to move forward out of those feelings, you have to forgive yourself. And one of the ways that makes it easier for you to forgive yourself is to move away from the behavior or the actions, right, which is behavior, or the speech, right? You move away from it. You're trying to get further and further away from those traits and characteristics. So you're doing things to display you are sorry about it, or you're looking for forgiveness for it. That's very key. Now, what's something for us to think about when we say why is bad if we don't validate ourselves? Well, here's the reason why. Well, if you don't validate yourself and you're looking for it from other people, then you'll find yourself constantly people pleasing. You'll find yourself constantly saying, well, what can I do to get their acknowledgement? What can I do for them to notice what I'm doing? Notice who I am. And then here on the flip side, if something don't go right or something don't go a certain way, you'll be like, all right, well, I done did this wrong and I done did that wrong. Oh, well, what else can I do? Or how about if I did this? You'll find you constantly people pleasing. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I'll try to do this for you. Oh, I'll try to do that. Again, when you do not validate yourself, you find yourself sometimes people pleasing. And that can be very exhausting. Because sometimes when we're constantly trying to please others, we're negating how we feel about what it is that we're doing. It's, oh, well, I'm trying to make you happy and I'm trying to please you so much, I'm not going to give attention to the fact that how it makes me feel by doing this. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take people's feelings into consideration. I'm not saying that you shouldn't consider how they may feel or consider what it is that they want. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if what you're doing to either, to please them, to appease them so much that you just ignoring that, this is eating me up inside. This is really killing me inside. I really don't want to do this. But you're like, I know that it's going to make them feel better by me doing this. You have to figure out how can you, I ain't going to say compromise. I'm going to say how can you synergize, where you give them what they want and they give you what you want. 1 + 1 is 2. But 1 and 1 is 11. And sometimes there is no synergy. Sometimes there is no compromise. Sometimes it's just I'm validating me. And that's it. So here's another thing where that actually is on a flip side, where it can be very detrimental when we don't self-validate. Well, we could now be taking on the thoughts of others in an unfavorable way. So because their view of you is unfavorable, well, now what'll happen is you'll take on these traits that don't belong to you. How they view you will now become how you view you. So if they view you as a negative person, a bad person, a downing person, an ignorant person, well, because you haven't validated who you are, you'll just accept their idea or how they feel towards you, and you'll just take that in and you'll take it on. See, there's a difference between taking information in and taking information on. Because when you take information in, you're just like, okay, I'm acknowledging it. But when you take it on, you become it. So if you have not validated yourself, well, somebody's impression of you or how they feel about you, well, now you will just take that on. So even if, and I'm not saying that it has to be on a unfavorable side. It could be on a favorable side where they like, oh no, you're really positive person, and you're really this, and you're really an empowering person, and you always see the bright side of stuff. But if you don't self-validate, then they viewing you that way is not going to be how you view yourself. You're going to view yourself. It's going to be hard for you to even take that on. And you may find yourself at a place where you like, oh man, no, I know that I'm not this positive person. Or you'll try to take on a level of positivity when you're not feeling it. You're not in a good space. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to do your best to be positive. But if you know that mentally and emotionally you are not in a good space, but somebody else is saying, oh no, you're such a positive person and you should just, you're always this and you're always that, it's going to make you say, all right, well, I guess I gotta be this positive person right now, even though I'm not in a good place. I'm not in a good mental space. I'm not in a good emotional space. That's why it's very important for us to validate ourselves, because we can now identify how we're feeling, no matter if it's favorable or if it's unfavorable. Now, what's another reason on why self-validation is necessary. Because we grow up in our lives from children to adults, and if we don't validate ourselves, well, what happens is we'll constantly find ourselves looking for the validation from someone who raised us. Now we're in our adult years and we can't figure out why we are operating the way that we're operating, how we acting the way we're acting when we interact with different people, whether because mom and dad didn't validate me. So if my mom and dad didn't validate me and they didn't make me feel worthy, then you'll now grow up as an adult always constantly looking for mom and dad to validate you, even if mom and dad is no longer around to do it. You're always trying to be proven to mom and dad, whether they're physically there or they're not physically there. Well, how can I this? And that can go for anybody. That can go for anybody that raised you as a child. And so now you put yourself in a position where you're an adult and you're in different dynamics or different situations, and you're trying to get validation from other people by, oh, they applauding you. Oh, and you feel some type of way when people don't acknowledge the things that you're doing. Because when you were growing up, nobody acknowledged the things that you were doing. So you find yourself lingering on to the things of people saying, oh, you doing this and you doing that. It's like you need it. You need somebody to say, oh, I see you doing this. Excellent job. I see you doing that. Excellent job. You have to validate yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Because if nobody else actually tells you that you're doing a good job and that you're worthy, guess what? You need to be telling that to yourself. You need to accept that within yourself. That's very important that we do that. So, what are some action steps? What can we actually do to self-validate? Well, 1, say some affirmations. Come up with some affirmations that is going to help you make yourself feel worthy. Simple one is, I am worthy. And then put whatever it is you want to be say you worthy of. I am worthy of attention. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of a pay raise. I am worthy of whatever you want to say what you're worthy of. That's where you can start. So another way is start writing things down. Write down what you believe you are worthy of. Right? Write down what you believe you are capable of. Write it down. Because when you write it down, you also see it. And when you see it, you read it. And when you read it, you memorize it. And when you memorize it, it becomes something that you know. See? That's why it's very important to write it down. Something else that you can do. Go look in the mirror and go and tell yourself, I validate you for who you are and how you think and how you feel. See, what you're doing is you're encouraging yourself, right? You're giving attention to your strengths. You're giving power to them. So do that. And those are some action steps to help you to really validate yourself. That's very, very important. All right. So that's very important to you. So now it's time for one of my moments. So in today, I remember one of my moments that I had where I didn't actually acknowledge the fact that I wanted my father in my life. I denied it for a long time. And I was like, oh no, I'm cool. He ain't raised me and things like that. And then I came to the conclusion that, oh man, no, I really think I do want my dad in my life. And I realized that because I was listening to a song by an artist named Lupe Fiasco. And the song is called He Say, She Say. And listen, I'm listening to this song, and some of the lyrics that was in the song, it was saying, it was almost like the mom was saying to the dad, like, give your son a chance, like show up for him, love him, like he deserves more than you not being around in his life and you just birthing him. He deserves more from you. And when I was listening to the song, I just started crying. Now, mind you, I'm 20 something. And I was like, at that moment, I was like, man, I think I really do want my dad in my life. He's not there, right? And I have no control over that. But I realized at that point that I did want him in my life, even though he wasn't in my life. So it's very important that we realize, even though somebody may not be there, that doesn't mean that we don't want them there. So just accept and acknowledge that the reality may be the reality, but that does not mean that you don't want something different to actually happen. And that was just my moment. My motto is go be great and on purpose.
You're in control of how you feel. You're in control. You are the determining factor of your feelings. No one else can control how you feel. Remember, you're in control of how you feel. So control your feelings.